and we will get started shortly. Perfect. So let me just hit record. All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this lovely Monday morning or afternoon, wherever you're located in the world. We're so happy to have you back for another office hour session about how to get hired during COVID-19, because things do not seem to be getting easier, especially with all the stress going on in the world, with everything that's happening globally. So thank you for being here with us during this time. Just a couple quick housekeeping things. I want to let you know that one, this is being recorded, and two, that we are live streaming this onto YouTube and to the PowerToFly platform. And so the reason I shout this out is that if you want to participate, which we highly encourage, whether that means, coming off of mute or writing in the chat, just want to let everyone know that if you do come off of mute, you will show up in the recording for any privacy issues. But if you write in the chat, you will not show up on the recording. With that, I do want to say, please feel free to write in the chat or come off of mute if you feel comfortable. This is really about you, and the questions that we'll be covering today are pre-submitted. And so, really just want to make this about you. And if you want to ask something privately, and so I can ask that anonymously, please feel free to write me privately in the chat box, and you can go to the chat box, hit the drop-down menu where it says everyone, and then find my name, Nicole Felter. And so with that, Abby, let's kick it off. I would love for you to just give a brief introduction about yourself, and then we will kick it right off into the questions.
Sounds good. I am sorry because I'm pretty sure there's some loud noise behind me now. But hey, I am Abigail Vachon. I'm a lead talent advocate at PowerToFly. I've been with PowerToFly for nearly 2 years now. So what I do every day is I chat with the companies that we partner with, figure out what roles they're hiring for, and then go out into our community and see who I can help pair with those roles. So I am doing the groundwork to help get you guys jobs. And I love it because I love getting to do that for y'all. Outside of work, I am, a doting cat mom of 2 precious little kittens. I call them kittens. They're 4 years old. I live currently in Buenos Aires. I've been living here for about 2 years now, actually a little over 2 years, but I am moving next week back to the US. So if I seem a little distracted or kind of insane, it's because I am right now. But, otherwise, like I said, I live here. I live with my husband and our 2 cats, and Nicole knows I crochet and I bake, and I'm otherwise a homebody when I'm not, traveling between Argentina and the United States. But that's me, and I'm excited to be here today and to chat with you all.
Oh, what a lovely introduction. Abby's cats are super precious, and I have loved working with her in Buenos Aires when we, previous to COVID, when we were able to be in person. So she will be deeply missed, but she's only a Slack message away, thank God. And so with that, let's kick it off with today's questions. And I just want to let everyone know on the line, I'm going to be dropping some events that are coming up in the chat as well around negotiation, how to find a mentor, some networking events. So feel free to check those out after. I'm just going to drop those in the chat while Abby is, leading us through this discussion. And so, kicking it off with the first pre-submitted question, I'm looking for any advice on how to make a career transition during COVID. Is it too risky to do this when so much seems unstable or unpredictable?
Really good question. So I think of it in 2 parts. One is just generally making a career change and the risks associated with that, and pivoting, because that's its own thing that a lot of people carry a lot of anxiety around, right? And then the other thing is that extra layer during COVID right now, where things are like super, super cray. So on the thought of a career pivot, I'm actually always a really big advocate for it, because typically this is not something that you just do on a whim. It's like, hey, I've been working and there's something else that's really important to me that I've discovered I love, that I discovered I really want to explore, that I want to do it. So do it. I've done it multiple times in my career where for me, it was that journey of I know myself a little bit better as I'm getting older. I know what my skill sets are a little bit more. And so I'm starting to narrow down on where I actually want to be as a professional. So it's an important thing to do. And one of the biggest things, my biggest advice for pivoting is always to make sure that when you're starting to make that pivot, which is always a little bit challenging, is consider your skills as a Venn diagram. What are the skills I have? What are the skills they're looking for? Where do they overlap in the middle? And let's make sure that I highlight that in my resume and my application. So that's on pivoting generally. Now to say like, okay, but should I do it during COVID? Like when things are a bit crazy right now? The quick answer is, I don't think that you have any higher risk in doing it now than doing it at any other time, because a pivot is always going to be a little bit more of a leap than maybe like a more expected career transition. What is true, what is something to consider, is that one of the fears that a lot of people are facing right now with ever taking a new job is, do I have job security if I'm like one of the new people at the company? Because often if a company has to make layoffs or something like that, it's like, last in, first out. That said, companies that are making hires right now, sorry, a plane went overhead. Companies that are making hires right now are not doing that thinking, and I might have to let this person go in a month. They're doing it because they actually can make hires right now. So if you are able to get a job, take the job. And a lot of companies, as they're trying to seek out candidates right now, are doing things to say, hey, we have a plan. We know what's going on. Things are crazy, but this is what we're doing to ensure that the people we're hiring have a home with us. So, is there higher risk in job security right now overall because we're in COVID? Yes. But the companies that are hiring, and if you're seeking to make that pivot and they hire you, they are looking for ways to make sure that you have a home with them. So I don't think that doing a pivot right now is riskier than doing a pivot at any other time. And I think a pivot is a good thing to do if it's something that you're motivated to do and passionate about. So up to it, go for it. It's going to be hard. It's a hard time to get hired right now. I'm not going to mince words, but like, if it's important to you, go forth and do it.
I love it. Thank you for that advice. And I just want to shout out, if anyone has a question and they'd like to come off mute or write in the chat, please feel free to do so during the duration of the chat. And Abby, I wanted to ask you, how can somebody stand out, whether it's their resume, their LinkedIn, during the application process? Like, what can they do to attract hiring managers, talent acquisition, recruitment? What can we do to stand out?
So it's another really good question. With resumes, they're a little cut and dry, right? So you want to make sure that your resumes are calling out, and this is like the boring stuff. They're calling out the hot topic words in your industry, because resumes they're never going to be that thing that's like, ooh, and look at this resume. Ooh, I just want to read that before bed because I enjoy it. Like, no, it's a resume. So, when you're planning on, this is the role that I want to take, whether it's in sales, whether it's in tech, whatever it's in, you look at the job that you're going for and you say, all right, what are the important things in that job? Let me make sure that those things are highlighted succinctly in my resume. Your resume should not be, 18 pages long, should not be 21 pages long. I know that sounds crazy, but yes, I have seen resumes that long. Max it out at 2 pages, like max. Your resume should just be a brief taster of, this is why I'm awesome, so that someone wants to reach out and talk to you more. On the cover letter side, you have a bit more room to get creative. And I actually think when people kind of brush it off on the cover letter, and I know the application process can be exhausting and so tedious when you're sending out tons of cover letters and tons of resumes. But if you use a canned cover letter every time and just, make the tiny changes, people can tell. So you're more likely to get that callback or that touchback when the cover letter is thoughtful and reflects the role or the company that you're trying to get into. It's your opportunity to say, I'm creative, I stand out, I've got my story to tell, and I promise you want to hear it. So don't be afraid to, put a little bit more life into your cover letter. Have other people read it over for you. A few years ago, and, bless my friend for not hating me for this, because she easily could have. She was like, hey, I really, really, really desperately want this job doing, XYZ. She was a chemist. And, could you read my cover letter for me? And I read it and I was like, girl, I'm so bored. I am so bored. And if anyone's response to your cover letter is that, the hiring manager is not going to call you back. So, don't be afraid to show who you are. You are you, and you are the only person like you. Show that through your cover letter, and that's going to help get you noticed a little bit more. That's on resumes and cover letters, which are always going to be hard to be the only thing that actually gets your foot in the door. Other than that, I would say if there's a company you really want to work with, if there's a role you really want to work in, get to know other folks that work in that role, that work for that company. Do it gently. Don't be too pushy, but feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and say like, hey, I see that you're doing XYZ. Like, I would love to get into that, or I've been thinking about moving into that. Is there any way we could have a Zoom coffee date for 20 minutes and I could just pick your brain? People want to help. I know it's a scary thing to do, but people want to help. So ask within your network. I'm looking to become a back-end engineer. Hey, friend from college, do you have any friends that are back-end engineers that I could talk to? Like, strategize. Who can you meet? Who can you talk to? Who can help you get your foot in the door? Because those are going to be the things that help you stand out, so that when the cover letter, when the resume comes across their desk, they're like, oh yeah, that's that person that so-and-so told me about, or that's that person that I had that conversation about. They seemed so thoughtful and gracious when I spoke with them. So those are the things that's going to make you stand out a bit more. Sorry, I think I kind of went above and beyond that question, but.
No, I know, I love it. And I think that was a really great piece of advice, connecting with people that are in that same area and, at the same company. So thank you. And so, I wanted to get into this question, which was, where and how should we start our job search? Whether you're just starting now or really in the thick of it, the person said that they've primarily been filtering by location. Should they start with that, given this kind of new wave of remote jobs and everyone transitioning to remote?
So I would say start your job search with what's important to you. So, this is probably a little bit off brand. There are things that I've realized as I've gotten older about what's important to me with a job. So when I was younger, it was very important to me to have this job that changes the world and and it's all these things in my head. And it became very difficult to find that job. But as I've gotten older, that's changed. I do feel like I have a job that's helping to change the world. I love working for PowerToFly. But other things that are important to me is the flexibility that it serves in having a remote job. So, does that mean that I would take any remote job off the street? No, it doesn't. But does it mean that I would maybe start with looking for remote roles, since I know that how important that is to me now? Yes. So does that mean that if a remote role is what's important to you, that's where you start? If the flexibility that goes with being remote is most important, maybe. If geographically being located where you are is what's important to you, then maybe that is where you start. If it's most important to you that you get to work in sales for a SaaS company, then start there. And if it requires a relocation and you're okay doing that, then who cares about the location? They'll make it very clear in your cover letter that you would be willing to relocate for a role, because, companies will be like, hey, why is this person in Philadelphia applying for this role in San Francisco? It's like, oh no, I am trying to move out there and I'm interested in your company. So that does help. But, start your job search with what resonates with you as a person, because that's going to help place you in the role that fits who you are. And it's going to help you be happier. It's going to help you do better at your role, because you're not just doing something that you don't know why you're doing it. You're doing it because these are the reasons that it's important to you. I hope that makes sense.
Totally, totally. I think it does. I think it was really helpful. And also it's listening to you talk about it is very, it like takes away the self-limitingness that I think sometimes we tend to put on ourselves. So thank you. And we had a question that came in the chat from Devney that says, if we're pivoting, how do we share with hiring managers that we want to get our foot in the door and would be happy to take an entry or mid-level position so we can learn how that company does things? Or will a potential employer think we have too many years experience, previous work experience, even not in that field, or our education is higher than required?
Okay, so there's a bit to unpack with that question. First and foremost is to Nicole's point. Are you putting on some self-limiting ideas when you're saying like, hey, I'm going to this employer on my knees and already saying, I'll take entry level if your years of experience suggest otherwise? I get it. When we're trying to pivot, it can be really, really difficult and it can feel very frustrating when you're like, I have 10 years experience and I really want to break into this other industry that on paper, maybe it seems like I don't have experience for. So I'm willing to go entry level, even though they don't think that. But why do you think that? Like, why do you think that you deserve an entry level role when you have a ton of experience? Because I'm willing to bet that it's not like you're going from being, you know, a computer programmer and suddenly you want to do something with like no related skills. But it just doesn't work like that. You have transferable skills and you have lots of them, probably more than you're giving yourself credit for. You know, we don't work in a silo. We don't live in a silo. That's not how life is. Like, you have a ton of skills. And if you have a lot of experience, don't sell yourself short by saying, I'll take an entry level role just to get in. Instead, refocus on how you can look at your resume, how you can look at your cover letter and say, listen, I know on first brush, you might not see where my experience applies here, but it totally does. And I'm totally going to kill it. I know I have to learn in these areas because I haven't touched whatever it is yet. But I have all of this other background that's going to totally make it better for you. Because you're coming in with like this diverse, rich knowledge that you've already developed from something else, and you can apply it to this new thing. So don't sell yourself short.
And I also just want to add in here that, and I wrote this in the chat, but like, I would also challenge you to look outside of your professional life as well, because in our day-to-day, there's things that we're involved in that may present the skills that we need to make a career pivot or to get into a job that we don't count, right? Whether it's taking care of elderly family members or volunteering at a animal shelter, or serving at a soup kitchen, right? Like, I'm just throwing out ideas out there, but I would just also challenge you to think about that. Whether it's even participating in a Facebook group, if you're like a moderator, there's skills that present there that, you know, are really useful, that I think apply, like these soft skills that apply really anywhere, right? Like, because in any job, you really need to be able to work with people at a main level. Like, that doesn't mean that, you know, maybe it doesn't mean you're going to get into management, right? But like, at a base, you need to be able to work with people, because if you can't, that's always going to present a challenge. Not to go negative there, but you know, trying to think more of things we bring to the table, because we tend to self-limit ourselves and sell ourselves short, like Abby's saying, way too many times. And especially as women, we negate so many of the skills and the attributes and the things that we bring to the table. So thank you for, you know, saying that and letting me chime in there.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so, Abby, this has been a pretty, you know, recurring question about what industries are hiring, what are people looking to hire at this moment, you know, what kind of seems to be the biggest thing in demand?
So pretty much, if you know where to look, everywhere's hiring. In-person events, maybe not. That one's a little tough. Travel, also a little tough. But a lot of places are still hiring right now, because whatever winds up happening with COVID and however long we stay locked down, or how socially we adjust as humans to a post-COVID world, we need to pick up, economically speaking. We can't keep going at like this kind of half step crawl of, I don't know, do we exist? Like, we are going to continue as humans. That's what we do. So, and companies are finally, 6 months in, starting to adapt a little bit more thoughtfully on like, okay, like, yeah, this is weird and it's going to be weird for a while, but we have to keep going because that's how we do. So, I wouldn't say they're like, yeah, biomed, like anything, pharma, anything like that, obviously. Anything that specializes in remote work, or remote events or things like that. Certainly, and understandably, those things are having their 15 minutes of fame, probably longer. But, I wouldn't say there's anywhere that's really not hiring. Like, yes, travel is limited right now. In-person events are limited right now. Everywhere else, if you know where to find, you just find the right companies, people are hiring.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I know we only have like 7 minutes left. So if you wanted to ask a question, please feel free to chime in here, wherever, whether it's coming off of mute or writing in the chat. But in the meantime, so what are some appropriate ways to get in contact with or get on the radar of recruiters and those who are hiring? I'm meeting lots of people in my industry, but I'm unsure of the protocol to connect with those who do the hiring/interviews to avoid wasting time and get my foot in the door.
So you can reach out on LinkedIn. Like, do your research. You can do your research on LinkedIn. You can Google, go to the company page, see if they have like employee trees and things like that. But you can connect with people on LinkedIn when you find them, whether it's, if you're looking for a tech role and you look for a company and look up their technical recruiters, or sales recruiters if you're looking for sales, or whatever it is, general recruiters. Or to the point I made before, if you're looking for a specific role and you can find the person who's in that role, or you're looking to be a software developer at let's say a aerospace company, you look for an engineering manager at said aerospace company. And you can connect with them on LinkedIn and just say, hey, I know this is out of the blue, but I'm really interested in the work that you do. I'd love to connect with you if you'd be open for a 20-minute cup of coffee via Zoom, just to ask you questions. Like I said before, people often are open to being helpful. People like to be helpful. So don't be afraid to do that. It's not weird. People do it all the time. Don't be afraid to do that. Also, feel free to connect with us at PowerToFly, and we can help connect you when we have the right contacts. So yeah, that's what I would say. Just be polite, be humble, but don't be afraid to reach out, because if you don't reach out, nothing's going to happen. So you do have to reach out.
Totally. Thank you for that. And I got a private message asking if PowerToFly follows up with companies after suggested positions are sent to PowerToFly members.
Yes. If we reach out to you and say, hey, the folks at such and such a company would love to connect with you. Are you open to an introduction? And we make the introduction, or we say, hey, check out this role. We think it's a good fit for you. We maintain client relationships to say, like, how's it going? Have you spoken with this person? We do our due diligence on that side to follow up as best we can. Some clients are easier than others to follow up with, but we do what we can to make sure that those loops close.
I love it. Thank you. And then we had another question come in. Well, this one isn't specifically directed for you, Abby, because I'm dropping chats in the chat box, but somebody asked about workshops on how to work on our personal brands. And so I just wanted to shout out that at PowerToFly, we have tons of content around personal branding, interviewing. I have a couple that I'll drop in the chat, how to find a mentor. We have our career coach that comes and does a free session 3 times a month. one for resumes, one for interviewing, and one for LinkedIn profile review, I believe. So we have tons and tons of content. I highly encourage you to go to PowerToFly and check out all of the content and all the events that we have, because there's a lot. And then we had another question come in from Debbie that was, sorry, that is my ferocious 2-year-old. So not sure if this is your wheelhouse. If we want to do freelancing, how should we determine our rates? I don't want to go too low or bid myself out of running by asking too much. The range margins are huge.
Really good question. So first and foremost, what do you need? If you need to earn a certain amount of money to live, and I don't mean to get by, I don't mean like I need just this much money to make sure I pay rent and gas and get food on my table. I mean to also save for whatever, to save for retirement. Like, how much money do you need to earn as a human to be okay in the world? Use that to help determine your rate. And then, in addition to that, obviously, you have a ton of experience, you can go at the higher side because you are bringing all that experience with you with the service you provide. But how much do you need to earn as a person, as an individual, to have a life? And then look at, what's the usual range from junior to senior within what you do. What's the usual range if you were to do it as a salaried employee? If you're more senior, which I think it was your question before saying that you had quite a bit of experience, so I'm assuming you're on the more senior side, go towards the more senior side of that range and kind of come back down to, all right, what does that look like on an hourly salary? That's how I would do it. That's what I would suggest.
Awesome. Thank you. And, just a last question to kind of close this out here, as we've got 2 minutes left. So for somebody who is maybe dealing with some ageism, how do I present myself as a capable old person worthy of an interview? Not my words. This was a pre-submitted question. Does age matter in these remote positions, or can you be more senior?
I mean, first of all, if you can do the work, you can do the work. So for remote, not remote, no, age isn't going to matter as long as you can do the work. Ageism is a thing. There's no way around that. It exists, and there's not a lot, like it shouldn't exist. It's not appropriate. It's not really legal, but it does exist. So, unfortunately, the advice around that is to apply for the roles that you want. Make sure to use your cover letter as a way to say, I have great experience and I would do a good job at this role, and explain why and go through that. And like anyone else, I would say, do your best to make connections with people that can help recommend you to certain roles and get you introduced to the right people. But I feel like I'm not, like, I hate that the answer is like, yeah, ageism exists and it sucks. And like, there's no magic way to say like, oh, an ageism doesn't exist if you do it this way. Like, there's no way around that. But you can be thoughtful about the people you connect with to make sure that you're getting in touch with the right opportunities, the way you present yourself, and the way that you say, this is my experience, this is the role I want, this is why I want it, to be very clear, so that on the receiving side, they're not making assumptions about you and your goal for trying to get a certain job or anything like that. Like, just be very clear in who you are, why you want the role, and how much you're going to kill it. On the remote versus not remote side, I would say that's a non-factor.
Amazing. And then I just want to shout out here that on Tuesday, October 6th, we have a office hours about overcoming ageism in the job search with Helen Sanchez, who is, she founded her own consultancy agency after working for 40 years in recruitment. And so she helps women who are feeling like they're facing ageism or are facing ageism in their job search in the workplace, really kind of navigate that and maneuver that. So, and Christina wrote here, if a company is using your age as an excuse to not want to hire you, it's probably not a good work environment to begin with. Amen to that, Christina. If there's a red flag, it's probably somewhere you don't want to work. So thank you for shouting that out. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone for being on the line today. Thank you to Abigail for, all of your amazing information and your insight here. I feel like it was really helpful for me, and I'm not currently searching for a job, so I can imagine that was helpful for people who are searching for a job. So thank you. And I just want to, shout out our events. We've got a networking session today, and then we also have a chat and learn about negotiation from a woman who negotiated three salaries, all 60% or more every time she negotiated them. So highly recommend that chat. I'll be tuning in. And with that, Abigail, I will give you the last word to send us away today.
Oh, I thought you were just going to say bye, but yeah, bye. It's been great. I always love doing these things. It's so awesome to get to chat with y'all in the community. And I'm here anytime. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I think Nicole threw my LinkedIn in the chat, or you can reach me on email. It's just abigail@powertofly.com. But it's been lovely, and I hope to talk to you all soon. And thank you.